Hey, how's it going? It's Sam Frost here, and in today's video I just want to talk a little bit about an issue I've seen pop up a couple of times, specifically for business-to-business organizations. So if you're selling as a business to sort of general consumers, Joe Public, this probably isn't going to apply to you because chances are that you basically collect GST at the point of purchase, and your business is structured to have GST inclusive pricing. So this is really for New Zealand retailers, Australian retailers. In the UK, you use the term VAT, obviously. I'm not too sure how this works exactly in America, because I feel like your sales tax system is a lot more complex than what we've got here, and there are some differences in how it works. So probably this video mainly applies to people within the United Kingdom or other countries that use the VAT system, or countries like Australia and New Zealand where we use GST, goods and services tax. Now, for consumer businesses, this really isn't much of an issue, because your e-commerce store, for example, will have GST inclusive pricing. So you sell an item for $50, and whatever the GST component is, that goes off to the government, and the consumer doesn't pay extra. But a lot of business-to-business organizations list pricing on their site, even if it's an e-commerce site, as GST exclusive, because obviously businesses can sort of get a GST refund in effect on the purchases they make. I don't want to say the wrong thing and annoy accountants, but we all know how that works. And so it's pretty common, at least here in New Zealand, same in Australia, to see ex-GST or GST exclusive pricing on business-to-business product catalogs and websites and those kind of things. Now, I've worked with a couple of businesses recently where they've been selling sort of business-to-business, also a bit of business-to-consumer via an e-commerce portal. So they might have a core business that's contract manufacturing or larger orders that's all sort of on invoice and proposal and those kind of things. But they've got an e-commerce setup where people can come along and purchase online, and historically they've had GST inclusive pricing on that website. So they've been able to work with Google's Merchant Center and shopping system, so you could run Google shopping ads and smart shopping and all those kind of things. And then what's happened is they've changed their site, they've done an upgrade, and they've moved across to GST exclusive pricing, which obviously makes more sense from a sort of practical perspective in terms of the customers they're trying to reach. Because for these businesses, their customers are generally other businesses. Okay, if a random homeowner comes along and wants to buy one of their products and they're happy to pay the shipping and so on, that's totally fine, and they'll make those sales. It's not their core business, but they're not going to turn that away. But equally, 85, 90, 95% of the business that they do, even via e-commerce, is going to other businesses who've got the ability to claim back those GST costs or those VAT costs. So it makes totally logical sense to move to GST or VAT exclusive pricing. The problem being that when you do that, you're basically no longer compliant with Google Merchant Center and Google Shopping's sort of terms, because what happens now is your pricing is not transparent from Google's perspective for the end user, because Google doesn't know whether someone searching for XYZ widget is searching to buy it as a consumer who doesn't get to claim the GST back, or they're searching to buy it as a representative of a business who can claim the GST or the VAT back. And so Google doesn't like it when you click on a shopping ad and the price is listed as $100 for that widget that you've clicked on. You've Googled, you've clicked, you think the price is $100, but then when you go and add the product to the cart, it's actually $100 exclusive of GST. So here in New Zealand, that'd be 15% extra is added onto the purchase price. So it actually becomes $115 instead of $100. But that only happens once you add the product to the cart or at the checkout phase. And so if you do that, what can happen is you can then wind up having your product listings suspended, or your account disapproved, basically. And so I've seen it be an issue for a couple of businesses recently where they've actually made some really good sales through Google Shopping ads and even organic Google Shopping listings, and they've made this change, and it makes perfect sense from a sort of wider business perspective, and it aligns with how they price items in store and in catalogs and those kind of things, because they run trade-focused stores where everyone who walks through the door is a representative of a business, often buying on account, those kind of things. And so they're just trying to reflect what they're doing day to day on the website. Makes sense, but it can cause this problem. So there's two things to bear in mind here. One is that sometimes businesses just seem to be able to get away with it. When I was sort of doing a bit of research for this, these clients of mine, I found like an interesting thread online from some UK-based businesses who were complaining, oh, we're getting stopped selling on Google Merchant Center or Google Shopping because we have VAT exclusive pricing, but we've got competitors, who are actually able to get away with it. Now, oftentimes this is just the case with all of these digital platforms. You're perfectly compliant, and you break one little rule and you get blocked or banned or stopped, and then there's someone running all sorts of things that you're not supposed to be able to get away with, and they seem to be able to get away with it. It's just unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. It's not. Platforms don't tend to enforce the rules 100% fairly, which is very frustrating. But you might be able to get away with it. It might be that Google just sort of allows you to continue running your ads, even though it's not really compliant with their terms. Because if you look at Google's sort of merchant center requirements, at least in markets like New Zealand and Australia, it's meant to be that your price that shows on the product page is the tax inclusive price, the sales tax or GST or VAT inclusive price. So you're not supposed to kind of spring people with hidden fees in effect, hidden taxes when they actually add that product to the cart or get to the checkout phase. So what can you do to get around it? Well, there's a few things to bear in mind. One might be that you need to look at having both GST inclusive or VAT inclusive and exclusive pricing on your product pages. There's a retailer here in New Zealand, PB Tech, who are a pretty well-known tech company. They're an example of a business that does this. They've got GST exclusive and inclusive pricing on their product page. Now, theoretically, you're meant to have the inclusive pricing be the prominent pricing, if I recall correctly, and then you can display the GST exclusive pricing for business owner or business purchaser benefit underneath or somewhere else on the page. So that's one option you've got. Another option that you might want to look at as well, if you're not able to make that happen, is to consider, can you actually take the product lines or the SKUs that were doing really well for your end user customers? So if you've got the ability to report on this within your sales system, so you can go and look and say, hey, look, we've got all these products we sell, but there's only a handful of them we're ever selling to people who are GST inclusive buyers. Could you take those and spin them off onto a little Shopify store or a Woocommerce store or something like that, maybe on a subdomain or on a different domain, and then you've got another sort of extension of your business that you can actually legitimately go through Google Merchant Center and Google Shopping Program with, and also use it to funnel people back up into your main business. So you could also look to do that as well. But basically what I just wanted to do is make sure you're aware of this. If you're currently selling online to businesses and you're looking at moving to a ex-GST pricing system because, or you're thinking about getting into doing it because that's who you primarily sell to, but you do have some normal GST inclusive sort of end user or consumer sales going through, just be wary if you do make this change or if you do start listing, that if you keep ex-GST pricing and you only have ex-GST pricing or ex-VAT pricing on your site, you might encounter some issues and you may have to look at some workarounds. So talk to your developer in advance. How would it work? Is it possible to have both pricing models listed? So GST or VAT inclusive and exclusive. Can we make the GST inclusive more prominent? Do we need to look at spinning off a side site or a little sub business or something like that? Hopefully you find that helpful. Now, as I said, this is also something where you'll probably find competitors getting away with the very thing that I'm talking about. So don't flame me too much in the comments if that happens. But yeah, if you need any more help, please do let me know. I'm always here to assist where I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.